you don't want to get bad advice. You don't want to be misled into area where you shouldn't go. AI is not magic. AI is very powerful, very smart, very well trained, but it's still a machine. If you train that machine on poor data, it will give you poor results.
In this emerging world of exponential technologies, data is everything. It fuels AI, drives automation, and enhances decision-making. It helps satisfy consumer demand for personalized experiences and enables innovation of new products and services. Yet the success of these initiatives is tied directly to the quality of the data that feeds them. Data leaders need to get ahead of data quality challenges with a management practice that tackles poor data quality at the source. Joining me here today is subject matter expert on building your data quality program, principal analyst Igor Akhonnikov. Igor, welcome. And maybe just to start, can you tell me, when it comes to data quality, why now? Why do we need to care as leaders more than ever about data quality?
Thank you for having me, Jeff. Data quality becomes as one of the top priorities of every organization because we want to make our decisions on substantiated basis. And if that basis gives us wrong perspective, we're making wrong decisions. The exponential IT have shown that we don't have time anymore for procrastination. We don't have time for pushing our problems somewhere in the dark corner and say,
right,
let it sit there, I'll tackle this later. You have to tackle it now. Data is consumed by human beings, by lots of analytical solutions, by AI, therefore it's time now.
Sure. Can you tell me a little bit more about that AI piece? What's the relationship between data quality and the use of AI tools in the organization?
A simple example would be if you give contradictory information to AI. For example, you give one report where you classify customers as good, bad, and ugly, and another report where you classify customers as platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. How AI would know what's your customer classification?
Right.
It won't.
Right.
It might make a good guess, but guess what the result would be. Also, factual data is extremely important. It has to be captured properly. And again, you mentioned data literacy should come first. That's extremely important. And it's not just word as a slogan. It's not a buzzword. People need to understand that there is a difference between master data, between your representation of your core concepts, business concepts, and transactional data. And that will dictate different approaches to quality management as well. So again, transactional data is extremely important for AI to statistically analyze what's happening. Master data, core concepts are extremely important for AI to properly assemble that data together to make conclusions.
Igor, what are the risks of poor data quality or failing to have a rigorous data quality program?
It's physical consequences. Its consequences is in the physical world. If you are a commercial organization, you can go in the wrong pathway with your product development. You can misunderstand your customers. If you are a government, a municipality, your constituents' well-being is at risk. You can make an improper decision, you can make an improper action and budget allocation, and that will detrimentally impact your constituents. So data quality is not a data thing, it's not for the sake of data only. It's to support proper decisions, proper conclusions, and they translate into physical world consequences. Advancement of AI especially has made data quality extremely important because AI can only process what is being fed. If you feed bad data into AI, it will provide you with wrong conclusions. It will misassist you.
Igor, what are the benefits of a well-working data quality program?
Benefits of data quality program that works well is, first of all, time. You are not wasting your time trying to figure out how did we get this number? Oh, I am seeing this report, can I trust it? That is already answered. If you've done your data quality checks, you're not wasting time, you're trusting what you see. So you're gaining time, you're gaining precision, right? You're gaining the right direction. And again, if you are employing AI, you can expect much better advice from AI if you feed it with the proper data, with the quality data, compared to otherwise.
Igor, one of the key insights that came out of this, data quality research is that, this whole initiative really has to start with the data consumer in mind, right? How is the data actually going to be used for, business decision-making, business management? Can you tell me a little bit more about that and kind of what that means in practice?
Yeah, I used to say the phrase, data quality is in the eyes of the consumer.
Right.
Why is that? Because if I am expecting certain data, if I am expecting certain reports, I have certain expectations. It shouldn't be at the discretion of the person who provides me that data or that report. If I require precise computations, if I require computations done using certain business rules and formula, I would expect that. But if timeliness is of primary importance for me, say if I'm monitoring real-time emergency situation, I just want to get notification of what has happened. It's a different quality requirement. I just need data to be timely and location specific, right? So that's why it is up to the consumer to define what are the expected data qualities.
Right. So, when I think about data teams, often they live a little bit siloed from the end data consumer. How do we recommend we improve that? Is it about elicitation tactics? Is it about, kind of a structural model? How do we recommend people actually, get closer to that consumer?
First of all, technologically, we have a tremendous opportunity to make data transparent all the way through. We call it data lineage, right? And this digital management of data, metadata about data, that's critical. That's what could help us to establish this bidirectional interaction between people engineering the data and people consuming the data. And another aspect of it, and Infotech promotes it recently especially, is the new role of manager of analytics portfolio. They are not so much about data quality definitions, but they help us to understand what is the consuming pattern. Who are the consumers? And once we understand that, it is easier then to convey to data engineers, to people who manage data quality right after the source or at the source, to understand what are the consumers' requirements.
Right. So it's a little bit of kind of the old adage of start with the end in mind, figure out what you actually need to see, and
convey back to the source, convey back to up the stream.
One of the other insights that came out of our research was all about being able to showcase the ultimate value proposition of data quality. And I saw that one of your particular notes was that it's helpful for it to be tied to a specific initiative. Can you share a little bit more about what this looks like in practice and what organizations are doing to be successful here?
Well, data quality does dictate success, right? Proper definitions of data and proper treatment of data help us automate lots of processes. Say from my personal experience, I had an example where I had to work with the business to properly identify two core conceptual entities which were heavily used in automating a huge report. It used to take 3 weeks to build that report. And it was prone to mistakes because most of it was done manually through spreadsheets, right? And we couldn't automate it because of the poor definitions. And poor definitions, it's akin to poor data quality, right? So once we fixed those definitions, once we streamlined how the data should be processed, for those reports, we automated it and it was running overnight. Instead of 3 weeks, it was overnight. So definitely value proposition is right there. And another aspect of it would be if senior execs receive 2 reports from 2 different teams and they look at the totals and they say, those totals, they should be the same, and they're off. What happens next? They send email, they call somebody, they waste time. It's a waste time. And waste of time, especially at the senior level of decision making, it's unforgivable anymore.
So when it comes to, selling data quality improvements as an initiative, I mean, I think in the eyes of a lot of executives now, or senior leaders who are thinking more about AI, it's not considered a hot project, but it's such an important one. And so how do you sell that? How do you show them the value that's created by, getting data quality right?
Well, you don't want to get bad advice.
Right.
You don't want to be misled into area where you shouldn't go, right? That's what you have to remember. AI is not magic.
Right.
It's not a wizard.
Right.
AI is just another very powerful, very smart, very well trained, but it's still a machine.
Yeah.
If you train that machine on poor data, it will give you poor results or incorrect results or misleading results.
Yeah.
You have to remember about that. And results and decision making cost money. Yeah. They cost money, they cost, if not money, then reputation, or sometimes they cost real physical risk for people, right?
Sure.
If we're talking about constituents and municipalities handling the data about constituents, right? So every aspect of data quality translates into actual physical world,
right.
Whether it's decisions about economical progression of an enterprise or safety and well-being of constituents, if we're talking about municipalities and government, or healthcare or anything else. Data quality directly translates into consequences of the physical world. We have to remember this.
Right. So it's, the classic garbage in, garbage out, but now the garbage out can do more damage than ever before. So tell me a little bit more about data lineage, and the key insights that come from, if I can call it a data lineage central model. How does that work?
It's very important and very interesting. Data lineage is what makes data trustworthy, right? How can we trust the data? If we know what happened from the point of data creation all the way through the data engineering pipeline up to the point of data consumption. If we can see that, if we can track that, we can trust the data. We can question what happened there. You multiplied it by something, you applied certain formula, we should be able to see that. If we don't, we cannot trust how those computations, how those data engineering actions have been done. And that can adversely affect our decisions again. Right? So data lineage helps us see through the data progression process. What happens, for example, again, another example from real life. We had a semi-automated pipeline of data progression. And at one point, finance decided, let us have access through the back door directly into that SQL database. Let us do something. And they did it without IT even knowing about that. Right, and we spent several weeks figuring out how come all of a sudden all the results in the report are skewed,
right,
and not what is expected, right? And therefore, again, data. If we had data lineage tool, if we had data lineage at that time, we would have seen that backdoor. It would be much easier to identify that.
Right.
If you apply, say, improper product classification, product hierarchy, you would see that with data lineage, right? If you don't have data lineage capability, you wouldn't see that.
So, data lineage, when it actually comes to putting it into practice and whether it's, creating a run book or having a little bit of a tabletop exercise around this, how are we seeing that work? How is it being documented typically, and who's involved in that documentation?
There are two aspects to it. Data lineage implemented in technology, which is abundant now. There are lots of tools that can enable technical metadata tracking, right? And the governance aspect of it. So there always has to be a handover, right? If I'm overseeing an operational system that creates data records, I know what's happening. And when I give data further on, say to the next player who takes data into common accumulation space, I need to establish a handshake. I need to tell them, that's what I'm giving you. That's what you're getting. Please document it.
Right.
Please make sure you check the quality as you retrieve data from my system. So they put it in the common, say, I call it data fridge, right? Common data custodianship place, which is ready to go for everyone else. So people should be coming, and they should not be wasting time thinking, where can I get the data that I need? It has to be properly cataloged by the person who organized this space. So it's not only technical metadata, but it has to be also enriched with usability description, right? What is the purpose and when this data set was retrieved? What is the intended purpose of it? Who can use it, where it shouldn't be used, etc., etc. So that common repository should be well cataloged. Now, I'm taking the data and I'm doing my data engineering. I'm crunching the data. I'm enriching the data. I need to also to document this. I need to explicitly state my assumptions. If I assume that, say, I'm computing monthly totals based on this order of the from the customer, not on the date of payment, I have to make this assumption explicit, right? People need to see how this data set that I have produced have been created. So all in all, you should see the lineage, and as I've tried to explain, it's an overlay. Technologically, we can document in data cataloging tool, but there's always needs to be a governance overlay. That is, we describe what we create, how we create, we describe what we take into common custody, how properly we organize it and cleansed it, and what assumptions were made to create any data enrichment, any data enhancements.
Right, and it sounds like a key piece of that is the the joint effort, if I can call it that, between the data team and the data consumers, who almost need to act as kind of signatories and sign off on, yes, this is what's happening, yes, this is what we want, right? Is that?
Absolutely, yeah, you hit it on the nail. Consumers, they dictate how much of quality enhancement effort should be put into the pipeline.
Igor, when we see these data quality improvement efforts, who's typically leading that, and what kind of level of effort is involved there?
Different by different companies. If an organization has a well-established data governance, definitely data governance lead, or CDO, Chief Data Officer. If organization does not have either CDO or data governance, believe it or not, it's report creators. Again, it's in line with what we preach. Consumers dictate, and report creators, they are the ones who scream. Right?
Yeah.
And why it happens? Because typically data quality is being pushed through. Like I mentioned before, let's put it in the dark corner. Maybe they will not need it. Maybe nobody will notice that, right? We're trying to postpone tech and data quality issues as much as possible. So when we come to the end, when we have to present data on the screen in a report, those people, and if they see something wrong, they have to scream about it.
We've got an amazing panel here today to talk with us about data quality. We've got Principal Director Igor Akhonnikov, Research Analyst Ibrahim Abdelkader, we've got Research Director Irina Sedenko, and finally, we've got Practice Lead Ari Glazel. Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. Just to jump right into it, when people talk about data quality, one of the temptations is to say, okay, we'll fix data quality, we'll bring in a data quality tool, we'll bring in a consultant to help us out. Is this the right place to start? Is this a key piece of the puzzle for this? Or is this maybe just, a little bit of a goose chase? And maybe Igor, I'll start with you.
Definitely you may have to have some external help. Definitely you may have to have some specialized technology, but it's internal matter. Data quality is what means to you. What data means to you, what fulfillment you expect of the data. That's why external help cannot solve all of your data quality problems. You have to get engaged. The whole organization has to get engaged fully and completely in the data quality problem.
Yeah, so Jeff, it's listening to Igor's answer, which is correct, and listening to how you asked that question, I felt there was an implication that we're just going to bring them in. Let's bring them in at some point. Mm-hmm. And to Igor's point, and I agree, but I want to double down on this, that it's a culture. It's about it's a posture. It's a way of operating. Quality isn't that thing that you slap on at the end. Say, oh, I got to go deal with data quality now. It's something you think about from the start.
Right.
And you need to think about what you need, right? What you want to do with your data to decide to really figure out the level of data quality that you need.
Also, data quality is a journey. So you cannot really just fix it once and forget about it. So you need to understand what really drives data quality. You need to understand what data sets or data assets or data domains that you need to really prioritize. So that's all really have to be done based on the business understanding of data, which is your internal understanding of data.
Irina, you and I were talking a little bit before the panel about this kind of sentiment we sometimes run across out there with leaders, which is, isn't there just a tool, maybe an AI tool that can just fix data quality for us? Is there zero truth to that? Is there some truth to that? And do we see that changing in the next couple of years?
It's actually a very interesting point because yes, that's what we hear sometimes. People are saying, well, we just bring AI. We have AI, right? So it's much smarter than we are. It sounds really, really smart. So we can just bring that AI and it will fix our data quality and it will figure out the data. Well, reality is that AI will not be able to figure out the data because AI is just a technology, it's just the tool. However, we need to remember that, and this is what the truth is, there's just a little bit, is that we have to remember that most of the data management, modern data management products and platforms, they have already some machine learning AI technology built into those products. So you are already using AI to actually prepare your data for AI, if you wish.
I mean, the way the question gets asked, and it's been asked many times like this from our members as well, AI is not the magical do everything widget.
Right, it's not a genie.
It's not a genie. It's not a genie, and it's just going to magically fix our data quality problems, because the AI most likely, what you take off the shelf and just plug in your environment, doesn't know, how you run your business. What do you use your data for? What are the needs of your customers? What are the regulatory needs around you? And so AI can't just magically fix that. Don't get me wrong, AI and the various related tools, they're important tools in your tool belt to help you on your data quality journey. And I like Irina's term, calling it a journey, but it is something to help and augment, but not something that just magically does it for you.
I feel that when it comes to the reasoning maybe behind that question is that data's become quite kind of painful for a lot of organizations. We've seen across all roles, so 75% of executives say that data is limiting business opportunities. And those that work with data, 70% of them say that data quality is their biggest problem. So because it's so painful in terms of the quality of their work, it can seem quite tangible in the sense that, hey, let's get a tool in to kind of fix this mess. And while a tool is very important to sustain and help with that initial cleanup, it's very important to make sure that you don't necessarily rush into it and start there right away, because you're not sure what problem you need to solve first or how big that problem is.
So it may be a piece of the puzzle, but it's not necessarily the starting point until you've better kind of scoped out, what the scope of the issue is, I guess. I want to come back to something that we've started touching on with just how pressing a pain point this is, not just for data teams, but certainly for businesses, for business opportunities. When we think about data quality, it's really just kind of one slice, if I can call it that, of a data management framework, right? Whether it's DIMBOK, whether it's our own framework, in addition to things like data strategy, data governance, master data management. To what degree are things like that, like data literacy, prerequisites from this versus the ability to dive right in, to working on data quality? And Ibrahim, maybe I'll stay with you for that one.
Yeah, it's very important in the sense that we've seen that once organizations, especially data governance, data quality is a core part of data governance. Once organizations have that up and running, we've seen a 60% improvement in data quality overall. So having those foundations, it's there for a reason. And maybe because data quality is quite the most painful thing, it does maybe bring professionals to expose to the journey. If you build your data quality program, you'll find very quickly if you don't have those foundations, it'll be hard to execute on that program without those gaps.
Anybody else want to?
Yeah, I wanted to follow on the previous two questions. So, first of all, do we need to use AI or do we rely on data governance only? Neither is appropriate, neither. You have to use AI, you have to use automation because 3 dimensions specified in DIMBOK that you mentioned before, 3 of the dimensions could be and should be processed automatically. It's completeness, validity, and consistency. It's humanly impossible to eyeball every single problem, every outlying thing. AI does it perfectly well. It can identify statistical outliers, let it do it. But you have to understand, besides those data quality dimensions, there are others, such as integrity, reasonability, accuracy. Accuracy is related to external world, how properly the data reflects external world. AI will not know that. Reasonability, AI will not know. Reasonability is a cognitive assessment by a human being. Is it reasonable to see that or not? And it doesn't make sense. So I just wanted to say that, yes, it should be a combination of governance and technology, but we should not rely on either side either. It's a combination. We just need to properly know this can be handled by technology, but this has to be handled by humans.
One of the key kind of success factors we talked about a bit earlier was this notion that, as we build out a data quality initiative, we're not going to tackle all data at once, right? We're going to kind of look for, potential areas of success, maybe start with quicker wins, ideally get to some, kind of really high value, data areas. What does that look like in practice? And like, what does it mean, I guess, in terms of trade-offs if we're going to say, we're not going to fix all the data? Right? We're not like improving data quality doesn't mean all the data in the organization is suddenly great, but we're picking our battles. How do what does that look like, and how do you sell that and communicate that?
The big challenge here, when we're talking about data quality, not data perfection, right? And so I'm going to use an industrial, give you an industrial example here. When you're making a piece of machinery, unless you're making a piece of machinery for a child's toy, let's say, there's going to be a very different level of tolerance there in terms of measurements versus something that's being used, in a surgical theater, let's say. It's an entirely different use case. And so what I consider good quality, and in each of those cases is different. Right? You can't say one is good quality, one is bad quality. It depends on the context and depends on the use case. Same thing applies with your data. Right? There might be, in some cases, there could be some challenges with that data, but for the use case that you're dealing with, the data might be of sufficient quality. And that's okay. A lot of our members make significant mistakes, both from a data context, product context, delivery context, where quality, they put in their minds, quality means perfection. And that's not the case. Quality means, does it satisfy my needs? And is it meeting the needs of the business and my future needs as well? Let's be fair about that. Right. But that's really important, that when you're setting that standard for quality, it's based on your use case. Now, there was another side to your question about selection, how you decide what to select. And this is, there's lots of different patterns in terms of how you decide what you select in terms of a pilot. Do you choose the hardest problem to solve first? Do you choose the easiest problem to solve first? Usually you want to pick find that Goldilocks piece in the middle where it's representative of maybe your organization's pains, but not so complicated that you're guaranteed to fail. So if you're trying to pilot a data quality program or trying to pilot on a specific piece of data, pick something where you can learn, where you can succeed, where you have a chance of succeeding and not just outright, crash and burn for no good reason.
Just to add to what Ari was describing and discussing, another dimension is really defining, have a very clear understanding what data that you need to focus on that will drive your business outcomes. So what is that, those proprietary, if you wish, data sets that will drive your business decisions? So what are those data sets that are important to drive your business decisions within the organization? So that's just one of the dimensions that you're also looking for as you are choosing what data to focus on and how to structure that program.
And I wanted to say, even if we admit concessions that we are not boiling the ocean, we're not perfecting all data, I wanted to flag one thing that must never be done, is cutting corners during data capture implementations. And we have to be honest, that's where most project managers are coming to development team and saying, what are you waiting for? Or you're doing validation of the form. Skip it. They know how to type the data in, let's skip it. So this is a definite no, right? We can scope our implementation on specific domain, but we should never be cutting corners, never.
I want to poke at that for a minute. So, and again, I come from a different viewpoint on this. You're smiling, I love it. So what do you mean by cutting corners?
Number one, data quality source, right? Ibrahim knows that, is data input.
Data input, okay.
And very typical situation, I went through this through so many projects in pre-Infotech Live. You need to create those validations for data entry fields. Mm-hmm. And it takes time. And project needs to be delivered tomorrow. Yeah, okay. And the project manager says, stop it. They know how to enter they know their data. Stop it, skip it. Let's deliver it as is without validation. So that's something that I would advise against definitely.
Cleanliness of data at source is what you mean, basically.
It's fulfilling the requirements. If you have a requirement to fill in a form and provide certain validation for those data entry, you cannot skip it. You should not skip it.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are rooting a huge problem for a long time. It will pollute your data. It will cause lots of grievance for many people. So do it right the first thing. Don't cut corners on the proper implementation, especially for data entry.
Also, we need to remember that now increasingly we are using data for data science, for machine learning, for AI. And data scientists will want to have access to as much data as possible. So they will try to get a hold of the variety of the data sources because they will be looking at trends, because they will be looking at analyzing the data and trying to derive some similarities and correlations between data points. Quality is extremely important. Also, with the generative AI right now, as we are talking about generative AI, and we talk about right now, there is this big discussions about how we evaluate what generative AI will generate for us. Well, if the data that we use to train that model is not of the good quality, and we know that the quality was bad, so how can we even evaluate the output of the generative AI? So it's just, there's so many considerations, and so data, like we cannot really talk about not having data. I understand that his point that, yes, perfection is, we're not striving for perfection, but it's again, what is, we need to have a clear definition, what is data quality for us?
I want to poke on that a little bit because, as a principle, it's easy to say, oh yes, make sure there's no cut corners and it's perfect the first time. But in this world, and Ari, I know you've been exposed to it, of agile, of piloting things. Yes. It's very easy for me, and I've been there, to envision a world where you run a pilot or you have a V1 of something and you say, we want this to be quick and dirty. That's part of the design. And so by design, we haven't quite baked all the right requirements, all the right validations in. And then we say, oh, it worked. Let's move on from there, but we're in a hurry and suddenly we never get back to cleaning it up, or we have this historical data that's messy. How do we deal with that use case?
How can you even evaluate the success of your pilot if your data is not of a good quality? You're doing something quick and dirty. How can you say our pilot is successful or not?
I mean, I'll answer that question, which is I think, and like I want to engage on this. Like, to me, I've always seen like the data is good enough for the next 2 weeks, or for like getting a kind of go no go, versus the data is good enough for an at scale, implementation. And what happens to those first few weeks of data?
Comes down to requirements again. Comes down to the use case, and again, in an agile context, in anything that you're delivering there, right? Your prototype up front is not production, right? Your prototype is a prototype. Right. You learn from it, and then you apply those learnings to your requirements so that you can build that right thing at the end of the day. And so, when Igor is talking about cut corners, to me, that's what I think about when I hear the word cut corners. Like, yeah, we kind of tested it as a pilot. It kind of works. So cool. High five, everyone. Let's go for pizza. And we're done. But that's not the case. Right. That's not the case, because that's not the requirement.
Imagine troops on the battlefield, and you send reconnaissance men first to figure out the way. And they go to a barrier, to a river, and they can cross the river. They're reconnaissance men. They're super duper physically fit. They can jump over the pole, they can use a rope, and they can cross the river quickly. Yeah. But does that mean that the whole army, the battalion, can cross the river the same way? No, never. So you have to differentiate. This is your pilot, this is your innovation, experimentation lab, and this is your production. Right. These are different scales, there are different requirements, right? And governance and data quality program, they may seem now to slow you down, but they save lots of time down the road. The more you do upfront, the less time you will waste later on when you've got full data going through this dirty pipeline and it's polluting your data lake, and then try to clean the whole data lake. It's a big deal.
Don't necessarily disagree. I'm going to explain that a little bit differently. So, trust is a long game, right? If I'm working with a group of people that just do not trust me, how do I go about gaining that trust? So you're alluding to before, asking about, how do you get started? Well, you build trust between each other through communication, but putting aside communication, it's by proving you don't screw up. That's how you build trust. And so how do you prove you don't screw up? It's about piloting those initiatives on smaller scales. So again, picking that right entry point. Right, you pick that right entry point, you then work with people to say, hey, so-and-so is not messing this up. This is, I am seeing the benefits of this. And it is a long game. If you're in an environment of low trust, there is a lot of piloting, a lot of work, and a lot of slow work to get there. Yeah. There isn't a button, and there isn't a magical tool in Infotech's arsenal to suddenly regain all that trust. Right. It's a process.
It's demonstrative over time.
It's a process, not an event.
It's actually interesting. So I was talking to one company, and they were replacing an HR platform, an HR tool technology. 2/3 of the project was spent on cleaning the data before they actually can migrate the data from the old system into the new system. So I know I'm getting us a little bit away from the whole pilot discussion, but I think that we really need to understand that it's not only how we are using data for the insights, how we are using data for decision making, can we use the data for AI machine learning, but it's just as simple as any project. If you don't have the good data quality program implemented, if you are not really, as we are discussing, data quality is the journey. It's a program. So that's why we are talking about program, not a project, because it's something that we need to be working on all the time, because as Igor mentioned, so the requirements are changing, the technologies are changing, the business is changing. We are adding new products, we are adding new business capabilities. So we are bringing new data sources. So it is a journey. So we do need to make sure that we have that predictability, almost like a business predictability. So if we are planning a project and that project will be using certain data, we have predictability into how long this project will take, what will be the effort, what will be the cost of the project. If we don't take care of the quality data, then we'll be spending 2/3 of our project times of any project fixing the data.
Right.
So if we just, if I bring us back from the pilot discussions.
Data quality as a program. I think there's potentially, a sentiment that gets shared, or maybe a bad habit, which is, oh yes, we should have a data quality program. That means we're going to hire one person for data quality, and that's what they do, and they'll solve data quality for us. Is there any merit to that approach, or is that completely wrongheaded?
I think that data quality is, because it is a program, because it is a program, it has to, we have to get all the right stakeholders involved. It shouldn't be just a full-time job of just one person, because business stakeholders need to be involved, and IT stakeholders. So it's everyone's job, pretty much, starting from the definition of the requirements, from how we are ingesting data, how we are using data through the applications, through the projects, through the business processes. So data quality, everyone has to understand, talking about data literacy, right? Everyone has to be engaged in data quality program.
Data quality management has to become your second habit, second nature, if you will. You're absolutely, you mentioned that word yourself, right? Bad habit, no, it's a good habit, right, to manage data quality. However, what I wanted to stress, there's gotta be a singular accountability for data quality program, right? It cannot be dispersed. It cannot be like, oh, we assume data quality management is just benevolence that descends our organization and everybody will be fulfilling this. No, there's got to be an accountability, a well-defined accountability through the data governance framework. Otherwise, but you've got to have a well-defined accountability for data quality management.
But not a single person.
It depends on organization.
Okay, yes, yeah, hear you.
Accountability, yeah. Ibrahim, you want?
I would say that I guess it depends on what part of the journey and what scope of responsibilities are we attaching to that single person. When it comes to kind of that accountability, right? When I hear that, I just mean because you're the owner, there's a lot of kind of pressure and it's positive pressure to progress the organization to become more data-driven and such. So it helps, keeps the whole organization kind of on their toes to kind of be aspirational and align with the overall business objectives as well. But yeah, when it comes to kind of, let's say, you're in a flood of poor data quality and such, hiring someone from the get-go just to do a lot of the kind of the deep work just to do that, that's where there's some difficulty there. Unless instead of having an army of people and such, you have an army of technology, I guess, to help you with that cleanup and that monitoring to sustain it. So it depends.
There's sort of another level to this, right? We're talking about that accountability for data quality. Right, and there is as well the feeling that everybody's concern should be data quality, and that's a fair statement. I agree with that, but it becomes very difficult very quickly because it can be foreign for certain people. So what are the enabling? Is there anything enabling that can help you with that? Well, this is where, coming back to an earlier conversation around AI and various tools on helping ensure a level of quality throughout, making so that data quality isn't this weird interrupt that's like interrupting data. Now I need to worry about data quality. Data quality just is, right. And that's where we really want to get to. Is everyone's concerned about data quality, but it's not an interrupt in their day. It just is, and that's where technology that we see in the near future really being a help. Right? There's a whole management defining the standard and the requirements, and yes, and there's an accountable person that will have some people perhaps help him or her with that. But really at the end of the day, we want data quality throughout, and it just is not something that you have to do.
So in essence, it's just part of the overall kind of culture, in the sense that it's part of everyone's daily habits, and they're not necessarily inclined to fight it.
And this is where technology will be the biggest help. is in that, and making sure that that data quality can be ingrained.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today and for the great conversation.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you very much.
I want to come back to the how here, how you actually build your data quality program. I know we've got a methodology here that walks, members through how to do that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that methodology? What are the phases here, and how do, folks get through that?
Well, you have to identify the scope, right? What are you doing? You cannot boil the ocean. If your data quality program is only starting, it's extremely important to find where we start. And the art and science here, naturally, you are tempted to start with the most acute problem. Mm-hmm. But from the plausibility perspective, from the feasibility of implementation perspective, it's better to take second most important issue if it's less complicated. Because the most acute data quality issue are likely to be very complicated, right? For typical example, we have problems with the customer records and we have problems with suppliers' records. Which should we tackle first? Suppliers. They're easier to fix, right? They're more predictable than customers, right? Customer corpus of data is fluid, is unpredictable, it's poorly defined scope and scale even, right? So therefore, the first step is identify what you are dealing with. Secondly, divide and conquer. Identify domains. Are we dealing with master data? Are we dealing with transactional data? Who owns that? Who should own that? And then apply appropriate methodology, right? For, say, master data quality management, we will have a different process compared to transactional data quality management. So then apply the appropriate methodology, and at the end, make sure you document what you've done to data quality, right? Make sure you make it explicit in your data catalog for data consumers what has been done and whether the data has been tampered with or is just data cleansing, data quality improvement. So those would be the major phases.
So when you go through those phases and you come out at the end, what do you walk away with? What are the kind of the outputs, the outcomes, the deliverables that are the natural endpoint of going through this?
We've got several tools, and data quality playbook would be one of them, right? Once you complete that, you've got something very tangible, even without a digital catalog.
So let's maybe talk about that for a second. What goes into a data quality playbook then?
You will identify what you're dealing with, what data domains you're tackling, who is responsible for those data domains, what are data quality problems that you need to address. Sometimes it's timeliness, sometimes it's completeness, validity, etc., right, accuracy, and then you apply the proper methodology for data quality fixing, right?
Right.
Do you need to go all the way back to the source, and that's the only place where you can tackle it, or is something that you can do somewhere during data engineering, data enhancement process?
So for people who are looking to follow this methodology and looking to build this program out, how long does this typically take to do, and how much can you get done in kind of a focused week of effort with a workshop?
In a workshop, you can achieve quite a bit, right? So you can go through the playbook, and as I said, you don't have to boil the ocean. Mm-hmm. So during the workshop, as phase number one, again, you identify what you need to focus upon.
Right.
What is your priority? It could be a specific initiative that you're going through, or you could identify a certain data domain that is most critical for you and deal with that. And then you apply other parts of methodology as I described. So practically, during a workshop, you're creating yourself a playbook, mm-hmm. right? You're creating yourself a repeatable instructions for yourself. What to do next? Say if today you're tackling suppliers data, then in a month or two, once you're done with suppliers, you can repeat the same process, the same methodology with the customers or products or something that needs to be addressed.
Right. So it sounds like it's all about the notion of kind of building momentum. How do you start with a scope that you think you can actually deliver on, and then use those tools and processes to actually, take on, bigger and messier challenges? Is that fair?
Yes, plus on top of that, people learn how to go through the process.
Right.
Right? A workshop is a guided implementation with the personal moderator guiding you through every step of the process, right?
Right.
That's the benefit. So workshop, typically we say, oh, here's the deliverable of the workshop, meaning a document. To me, a nonetheless important deliverable of any workshop is building the team and training people to go through
Right.
this process. Once they go through this process with the help of moderator, they're not afraid to go through it on
Right.
their own next time. Right. That's invisible but very tangible value of any workshop.
And so, Igor, you've seen data quality processes within, dozens, hundreds of organizations. If you're inspecting or assessing an organization's data quality processes, what to you are the things that you're looking for that make you say, oh yes, that organization is doing a really good job with their data quality process? What are the indicators that something is that they're doing the right things?
First indication is very simple. If I come to an in-person workshop, I ask them to draw data flows on the whiteboard. If they can do it within several minutes, I know
Right.
they know that's the indication of data lineage. They understand data lineage. They understand what's happening in all the data pipelines end to end. If they do that, chances are they know how to put proper controls
Right.
inside. If I see the opposite, if people say, oh, I don't know, we've got so many systems, how data moves from one place, that's already a trouble.
Yeah.
So understanding or establishing data governance, establishing proper architecture
Yeah.
is the first prerequisite. Secondly, you need to know where to put what controls, right? What are you, again, what are we handling, where, what ultimate result we're achieving, right? So, and it depends on you ask what best organizations are doing. It depends on the requirements of the organization, right?
Right.
Say municipalities who are fighting forest fires, timeliness for them and relevancy to specific geographical spots, that's of primary importance.
Right.
Whereas if we're talking about healthcare research or pharmacy-related research, it's a different type of data quality. It's precision, right? It's precision, it's relevancy, its ability to process huge volumes of data consistently, et cetera, et cetera. For commercial organizations, it's different. The indicator would be profitability. Can we increase our profitability? Can we increase our revenue by better understanding the customer, by better understanding what products that customer needs? So
Right.
different data quality aspects reflect just, again, consumption pattern.
Right.
Why we're doing this data quality. If we understand that, then we should do data quality right. But again, the foundation of that is everyone has to partake in it, and you have to have a comprehensive understanding from the point of creation
Right.
until the point of consumption. We need to know what's happening and who is responsible.
It all comes back to that data lineage, to that, if I can call it a mapping exercise of, here's what the data looks like, here's the data flow, and from that, can we figure out where, with data consumers, where are the really important kind of trigger points and flows, and how we can prioritize the improvement efforts.
Yes, on top of that, it's an overlay of vertical differentiation, right? As I mentioned, master data has different quality requirements typically from transactional data. Right. So we need to understand by the type of data we are dealing with, what quality actions, what quality methodology should be applied to different types of data. That's why we identify domains. That's why we're trying to identify what is the use case for the data.
Igor, this has been great and really insightful. Thanks so much for joining today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Been fantastic. And for everyone else who's interested in building a data quality program, check out the full blueprint at infotech.com.